Just a warning before we get started. This episode discusses child sexual abuse. Please take care while listening. Are children safe at childcare?
I believe right now they're not safe.
That's a huge statement.
It is. This sector is in crisis, and that's why the governments really have to act urgently because children aren't safe.
Adele Ferguson is an investigative journalist at the ABC. She spent more than a year reporting on the crisis unfolding in Australia's childcare system. And last week, alongside her colleague Chris Gillett, she won the top honour in journalism, the Gold Walkley. Her work has inspired us at 7am, and so today we're bringing you an episode we made back in July, where we spoke to Adele about her investigation. I'm Daniel James, and you're listening to 7am. Today, Four Corners reporter Adele Ferguson on the dangers in an industry driven by profit, and the former National Children's Commissioner Anne Hollonds on what needs to be done to protect children in care. It's Sunday, December 7.
Good evening. We begin with one of the most distressing child sex abuse investigations in Victoria's history. Hundreds of children are tonight awaiting urgent...
Adele, thank you for speaking with me. Can you just lay out for us the allegations that have emerged in the last few days about sexual abuse in Victorian childcare centres?
Yeah, so it was a 26-year-old called Joshua Brown who was arrested and charged with 70 counts of sexual abuse of 8 children between the ages of 5 months and 2 years, so very young.
Police have records of the man working at 20 different childcare centres between 2017 and 2025, most of them in Melbourne's west. The state government...
How is it that could happen? What safeguards are in place to stop perpetrators working in childcare centres?
There are supposed to be working with children's checks, but they're deeply flawed. So each state is different. In Queensland, you have the blue card. In other states, there's the working with children. And what happens is you have to have been charged with a serious offence to lose your working with children check. So you might be under the radar, and so you have a working with children's check, which is what happened to the gentleman in Victoria. And in terms of working with children checks, if you're in ACT, for example, and you've been investigated and you've been suspended from a childcare centre, you can just hop to another state and get a working with children check. Privacy protects these people because the states don't share things. And that's why there's been calls to have a national register for 10 years, and it hasn't happened yet.
The man who was alleged to have molested children in his care worked across several centres. On the surface, it's hard to understand how he wasn't caught by a colleague sooner. Can you tell me what your reporting has uncovered about why it is that childcare workers may not report abuse if they see it?
Yeah, there's a number of reasons. One, how do these people get away with it? You know, in the case of Ashley Griffiths, who's now in jail for life, he worked across many centres and it went under the radar. And you think, how does that happen when this guy had tripods and was filming in the childcare centre?
One of Australia's worst ever paedophiles has been sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for 27 years after confessing to raping and abusing scores of girls in childcare centres across Australia and overseas.
One of the reasons is lack of supervision. There aren't enough staff. There's a lot of gaming of the system when it comes to staff to child ratios. But in terms of the reporting of it, it's mandatory to report, but there's 2 reasons why it often doesn't happen. One, a lot of educators don't understand child protection policies. They don't understand the mandatory reporting that's required, so they don't do it. And the other reason is they're too scared. Sometimes if they report anything, they get retribution or they become a pariah because they're dobbing in a workmate. And so there's those 2 things that they're not protected when they do. They're mandatory that they should, but they're not protected from the system when they do.
Your Four Corners investigation into the childcare sector revealed that even the dodgiest providers who aren't meeting basic standards are still allowed to operate. Can you explain how that works?
Yeah, that's exactly right. You know, one of the problems is there's been this explosion in for-profit operators, private equity, listed companies, overseas operators, and they're putting profit before children. And because there's such a demand for childcare centres, the regulators seem to not have the appetite to go after them. So when educators do something wrong, in many cases when you're looking at the regulatory documents or you're talking to parents, not a lot seems to happen. So, you know, when the Minister for Education is saying we're going to beef up penalties because they're not high enough, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, it's a good idea, but the regulators aren't even using the penalties that they have. So there's a problem, and I think one of the reasons for that is if they go in hard and shut a centre down, they're worried what are the implications for parents? Where do the parents put the children?
There's been a lot of focus by the federal government on expanding access to childcare. Within that, what focus has there been on safety?
Not a lot, as we can clearly see. It's only since this terrible incident happened in Victoria that governments are coming out saying we've got to do more. Jason Clare was on 7:30 saying we haven't done enough and we've got to move faster.
We're taking action, but not enough action has happened and not fast enough.
All right, let's talk about that.
Safety has not been on the agenda. It's all been about affordability.
The honest answer to you is that this job will never be done, that there will always be bad people that try and break through the net. That doesn't mean that you do nothing, though. That means that we've got to do everything that we possibly can to make sure that our children are safe. That's why people are talking now about CCTV or about an educator register, about improving working with children checks. None of that is a silver bullet. None of that is going to guarantee every child is safe. But all of it are the sort of things that are necessary if we're fair dinkum about doing our jobs.
So what is your view?
What the government is saying is by September they will have a national working with children checks. There also needs to be a national registration scheme for educators so that we can track who they are, how often they've moved around. We have that for aged care, we have it for teachers, we have it for medical practitioners. We don't have it for childcare workers.
After the break, the former National Children's Commissioner, Anne Hollonds, on a national response that could protect the voiceless. And you've called for stronger regulation of the childcare sector. What would that actually look like? What sort of things would change to make sure that there is stronger regulation?
Well, first of all, I think we need independent oversight and monitoring. What I'm unclear about is how independent the current regulators are in the states and territories. Secondly, they need to be properly resourced. So, you know, we've heard allegations that they're not visiting centres very often, and that's because of a lack of funds. And then thirdly, they need to have teeth to act. They need legislation that enables them to take the actions that are necessary. So on all three counts, we seem to be lacking at the moment.
Another thing that is being floated at the moment is that all childcare centres should have CCTV surveillance within them. What do you think about that?
Well, I think the recommendation came out of the New South Wales review after the Four Corners episodes, and I think that recommendation said that you'd only have CCTV for the dodgy providers. Well, the dodgy providers shouldn't be operating, so forget that. They should be out of the game. And I note that Good Start Early Learning, which is the largest not-for-profit provider in the country, have already announced that they're going to install CCTV everywhere. So I think we take the lead from them. I think it's good practice.
We've also heard a lot in the wake of these allegations that a discussion has emerged about banning men from working in childcare centres. Do you think that that's a legitimate proposal and policy that the sector could adopt, or are there other factors that need to be taken into account?
Well, look, I think it's an overreaction and perhaps understandable given how outraged we are across the country right now. But I don't support it. I think there are very good childcare workers of both men and women in the sector who are doing an amazing job. Kids need role models of both gender. We just need better screening and recruitment measures. We need better training of staff, all staff in centres from boardroom to the sandpit. Everyone needs to know what to look for in terms of grooming and risky behaviours. And we need that strong regulatory scaffolding that we've just discussed.
You said National Cabinet must make child safety and wellbeing a key priority in the same way that women's safety is a top priority. What would that actually look like, Anne?
Well, that could be done with a stroke of a pen, Daniel. There could be a decision made by the Prime Minister that we need to prioritise child safety and wellbeing and he'd get his state and territory colleagues to agree to that. With women and women's safety, what it looks like is that there are reports to National Cabinet on reform actions that have been agreed on, and all the states and territories work together with the Commonwealth to progress reforms. So everybody's at the table and there is accountability at the top. And by the way, we do that because we see women and women's safety as a critical national issue. So it's a very good thing that we're doing that. Currently, when you look at the list of issues for National Cabinet, and it's publicly available, you won't see the word children anywhere on that list. I think that's a very important missing piece in terms of accountability for action on these previous Royal Commissions and inquiry recommendations that now it's being admitted that we were too slow to enact them. Why? Because there's no accountability to do so. The other thing we need is a Cabinet Minister for Children. Why do we have Cabinet Ministers for women? We've had them for decades. It's because it's an important accountability mechanism. It provides national leadership and coordination across the portfolios and keeps women's issues front of mind. Who's doing that for children? No one. Another mechanism that I've recommended in a report to Parliament last year, as well as a Minister for Children, as well as National Cabinet oversight, is a ministerial council on child wellbeing. So this would be a council of experts from different disciplines that would provide advice to ministers about what needs to be done. Again, we don't have any of that for children.
What does it say about our society, Anne, that we've relegated the care of our oldest and our youngest to systems driven by profit and which we see time and time again are rife with abuse?
Well, I spend a lot of time asking myself, why are children sidelined and often invisible when it comes to policy? When you ask about that in terms of children, well, they don't vote for a start. They don't have a voice, and there is no accountability mechanisms in place. What does it say about our society? Well, I think it shows actually a gap between what people value, ordinary citizens value. They value children, they value older people, right? And what politicians are spending their time thinking about.
And thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Daniel.
Since we originally ran this story, Four Corners has published another investigation into how widespread abuse is in childcare. The government has responded to the crisis by promising to implement a national working with children system, something the Royal Commission into Child Sexual Abuse recommended more than a decade ago. Childcare workers will also receive the second part of a government-funded pay rise, as poor pay has been highlighted as a key reason for a lack of safety in childcare. If you want to hear more of our reporting on this issue and more about what still needs to change, you can listen to our interview with Greens MLC Abigail Boyd. It's called The Woman Who Exposed the Childcare Industry, and it's available wherever you listen to podcasts. There is specialist help available for people who've experienced sexual abuse. Kids Helpline is a free, confidential counselling service for young people aged from 5 to 25. You can reach them on 1800 551 800. They're available 24/7. Or you can call 1-800-RESPECT. a counselling service which also supports people affected by sexual abuse, and they're also available 24/7.